Thank you for the kind words, Madam Chair. This is an interesting conversation that needs to be had and a very important one. Um, because what we do know is that Malaysia's export has expanded 47.3% year on year. And a lot of this is being driven by eNED, and it's been driven by agricultural products like rubber and palm oil. And according to DOSM, or the Statistics Department, the expansion in exports is a consequence of a higher export towards some key markets, to Singapore, to US, India, Japan, China, and the EU. But as we know, 2021 is a very difficult year for many exporters, particularly the SMEs, because the situation at home is quite dire, and we don't know when the MCO will end. We don't know when the National Recovery Plan can be kicked in, because we have clear markers on how we can move from one phase to another. But at the same time, these ongoing issues result in us being unable to do business as usual to the best of our capacity. So because of this mega trends that is happening to us, we have to have a chat with some of the key leaders right now on how we can reignite our exporting agenda. We have Dato Nick Muhammad Ashuddin, the non-independent, non-executive director of Bank Islam Berhad. We also have Dato Medan Abdullah, the group CEO of Bintulu Port Holdings. We have Muhammad Nur Hilmi, he is the CEO of IX Telecom, and Arvin Menon, the MD of VG Offshore Containers International. All key people that is required for us to understand the mega trends that is affecting the exporting world right now. Let's start with Dato Nick Hashuddin. Some of the key questions that a lot of businesses are asking is on what opportunities would businesses stand to gain by exporting in this climate. We all know that exporting does unlock new markets, but right now, because of the situation that I have just described, what would be some of the key opportunities that you feel is required that you want to share with the audience this morning?
Good morning. Thank you, Ibrahim, for the question. There is this saying that suggests that you need a burning platform to push for real change. And now with COVID-19, I think there are so many burning platforms around the world. And as a result of that, you have a lot of supply chain being disrupted, and a lot of major producers are really thinking about how to make sure that they are able to withstand similar challenges in the future. So I think this opens an opportunity for many of us to look into this. And at the same time, the development in technology has also opened this avenue for export very wide. And there are opportunities for smaller players to be part of that. So I think, as what you mentioned, by exporting, you are expanding your market, and I think this is important for any businesses, because for you to continue to grow and sustain your business, you need to continue to expand, and naturally it will result in an increase in revenue. Of course, there are challenges which I believe will be discussed later, but at the same time, when you are exporting, you are competing with the best in other marketplaces. So this will force you to increase your standard, to increase your quality, to increase your efficiency, and this will make your business a more sustainable company. So all in all, while exporting do pose challenges, there are new things that you need to deal with, but it provides an opportunity for businesses who are strong in their domestic market, who has a product which has that can appeal to a wider market, to continue to grow and increase their business. So that's my starting point, Ibrahim.
That is a good starting point to be had. And because of that, we want to have some exposure and some real, scenarios of how things are going when it comes to exporting. Maybe I can invite Arvin to share a little bit about VG Offshore Containers, your exporting journey, and your journey in helping SMEs in particular, but of course large corps as well, in their exporting experience. Arvin.
All right. Thank you, Ibrahim. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Basically, we started as a trading company in the early years of 90s, right? When we started as trading, we went into the offshore business when oil and gas. We started trading usually all the common items, and our first market was not in Malaysia but was in Singapore. It was much easier those days with all this exporting and all that, where the market demand was much more higher. And then eventually we ventured into manufacturing. When we starting manufacturing, our main markets were Vietnam and also Singapore, because Singapore was the region for the oil and gas at that point of time. So that's how we started. Eventually, we started venturing into different markets like US, North Sea, Norway, and Scotland, and all those sort of things, and even in Africa in recent days. Things are different in these days, whereby whenever you need to start exporting, you need to have a certain criteria, tariff code. We also have to have a local content in certain countries. So these are some of the export barriers that we face in the recent days. But uh, but when we do this, we need to get a real partnership with our client, where we are exporting to the country that we are exporting, to make sure that we are having the same understanding in terms of tariff, in terms of the equipment that we are sending over. And also we get assistance from our market as well in many senses, because they have the local office who understands what is required, where are the items going, is there any restriction in per se. So certificate of origin, things like this. Many of our people in Malaysia, especially our exporter or first-time exporters, do not know, like Atiga. These are the free trade agreements and things like that. So usually, whenever we go for any exhibitions or even talks like this today, right? A lot of common question which is thrown back to me is, how do we start? Where do we start? No, is there anything that we need to get ourselves registered to become an exporter and things like? They do have a product, but they do not know where to start with. And to become a good exporter, you need to have a value proposition. So what is your value added service that you're going to give to your customer as well? So because you don't want to be in the same group as other local sellers in their country, you see. So you need to have what makes you different and what makes you sell. So so we are not Coca-Cola to per se that it goes in. They would have started a similar way we are starting. So you need to have a brand. You need to have a value proposition that you can provide to your customer. So these are the things that we can discuss today further, and how we can help others.
Okay, Arvin, I've jotted down two key points. Number one, how to distinguish yourself and create that extra unique value, added value proposition to distinguish yourself. Number two, where do we start? A lot of people say that Matrade is a good place to start, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. What would be some of your
Yeah.
views? Arvin, I'm still sticking with you on this one. Where do you think that businesses can start when it comes to their exporting journey?
All right. There are many different chambers. Okay, we can start with chambers, for example. Federation Manufacturing Chamber is one of it. All right. Malaysian manufacturers. There are also so many chambers for the Chinese, the Indian chambers, or the Selangor State chambers. The chambers is the first step that you can start with. If you're a manufacturer, you can start registering yourself into one of the chamber, because you get market input on a daily basis, and you also can talk to all the subject matter experts. The other way is, for small SMEs, we can start also with SME Corp, because they do have their own divisions on subject matter experts as well. So these are the two areas that we can talk to, beside the market experts who are already doing it. But how many of them have access to it? So chambers, SME Corp, and Matrade is definitely one of the main place that you can go to. But a lot of people do have this hesitation that, will they respond to you? Are they approachable? Things like that, you see. So if you don't know, if you don't try, you will never know, you see. So chambers, try with the chambers and SME Corp and then Matrade if you want to.
Okay, we'll leave the uniqueness or the unique selling proposition later on in the conversation. Let's move on to Helmi. Do you think that we have the infrastructure in place to ensure that businesses can utilize them if they want to export, Helmi?
Yeah, Assalamualaikum. Very good morning, everyone. So it's a great pleasure to be here today. To discuss about, this topic. With regards to your question on infrastructure, yeah, we are moving towards a digital economy, and we have a good infrastructure in place, such as the internet, and soon there will be 5G. With this kind of infrastructure, we will be connected anywhere we are. Okay, when we have to take advantage of that infrastructure because we are living in a different world compared to maybe like 10 years ago, right? Because everything is on our fingertip. Yeah. So as a company, we should also leverage on the platform-based model, to export our product and services. Leverage on automation and digitalization, right? This is a good time. For the company, to adopt so-called the Industrial Revolution 4.0, IR 4.0 in our organization. So we can use a comprehensive, holistic, and interlinked approach. To the business. Leverage on the Internet of Things, yeah, IoT, the automation, and also data analytics, because we already have the infrastructure in place. So we can't wait until everything is back to normal. Yeah, it has to start now and treat the way we do business during this pandemic as a new way of doing business. Reignite our business and also reignite our export now. This is a good time for us. To start to restart. Yeah.
Datuk Medan, do you agree with what Hilmi just said, that we cannot wait, we cannot back to normal. We have to reinvent how we do things. Let's talk about your journey at Bintulu Ports as well. Like, how are things done before? How are things being doing now? And what would be some of your predictions on how things will move forward? Because you're literally at the front of the exporting experience.
Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. I think Assalamualaikum, very good morning to everyone. Okay, before I go to answer your question, I would like to say a little bit about the pandemic and how business will deal with it. And number one is people must recognize that we are not in a business as usual world. Okay, if you don't realize that, then I think your responses to your challenges in terms of your business will not be forthcoming. So I think there are two things. Number one is we need to keep your people safe. Okay, because the people are the ones who are doing your work and carrying out all the business activities and so on. And secondly, you must keep your business going. So don't not talking about export here. So you must remember that. So there's a lot of disruption to the production value chain. We know that, and also the logistic value chain as a result of the COVID. So these are fundamental issues that need to be overcome before you can talk about export and so on and so forth. So I think I stop at there for the moment so that before I can talk about what are the barriers to trade and so on.
No,
With
I completely agree with you, Datuk Medan. But the situation is sometimes people cannot move on forward because they cannot do their business following the MCO, or because they have to let go of their workers. This is a very a tough time, so to speak. The SME Association says that out of 1.2 million SMEs, about 400,000 will cease to exist. Gulung tika, that's it, game over for them. And I don't know whether those projections are accurate or it's really a worst case scenario, but it does bring about that conversation that right now is a very tough time for everyone. Harking back to what Helmi said, do you feel that while trying to get the business going is one thing, but you think that now is also the time to do exporting, or is it more important to put out the fires elsewhere first and then think about exporting? How does the priority of exporting lie, Dato' Medan, in your view?
Yeah, of course. I think we can export. The export is the only way we can earn hard currency. So of course you need to take care of all your value chain and so on, and you try to export. But also another point is I think what has been highlighted is to leverage on the digital platform. I mean, I think many companies, some are very fast reactors, some are slow. But the earlier we get into comfortable with the digital platform, I think that's the one of the best way to overcome some of the challenges that the pandemic has presented us. So I think the subjects that being discussed here, I think is very relevant. So if you pay attention to that, you take care of all the basics that you have. I think the chance of you for exporting or creating continuity, sustainability of business is you have a better chance.
Ibrahim,
Okay, I
if
want to
I
bring in
can
all the. Yeah, go ahead, Dato' Nick.
okay, okay, if I can interject, I think when we talk about exporting, I think maybe we have to be a bit more more structured in terms of our thinking. Uh, when you because export, now you can categorize that in many ways. If you are a producer of goods, then maybe perhaps you start to think whether you want to join the global supply chain. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of disruption. Maybe it creates you an opportunity. But if you are a B2C kind of a business, then you can join all these market platforms that are available, even the Shopee, the Lazadas, because, while we are, as consumer, we keep on buying things from overseas, but it also allows our businesses to sell our product overseas. And these are, to me, a lower barrier of entry where certain part of the exporting issues are dealt with by the platform. And then if you are a service provider, you can, I think what Helmi was talking about, you reach out to your customer overseas. People can come and buy your product without even them coming here or even without you going out. And I'm sure we have telephone and there's so many apps on there. And each of the apps are basically a solution that could be provided by people who are not even in the market. So that's why I mentioned earlier, when you talk about technology has opened up a lot of opportunity and you need not leave your shore to be able to sell your services overseas. Third point is about intellectual property. And I think this is something which a lot of people may have overlooked. While you build your business, you have developed a lot of solution for yourself. And some of these could be something that other people in other market would be willing to pay to solve your problem. So I think what we need to do now, given this opportunity where, while certain part of our business may not be able to be open, then we can start to think and strategize. How are we going to expand our market in these various forms that I mentioned earlier?
Let me tell you a story. Last night, before going to bed, I broke my vacuum cleaner. It was a Dyson V11 vacuum cleaner. There is a part that is broken. I tried my best to reinstall the gasket back. It couldn't fit. And I spent 2 hours going on Shopee, Lazada, finding the parts, couldn't find it. I went to Amazon US, couldn't find it. eBay, couldn't find it. And then I just put in Google, right? That particular part name, because I go to Dyson's website, I can find the part name. It's just a bunch of serial numbers. I Googled it. And apparently there is a small shop in the UK that sells it for 20 pounds. The shipping was the expensive one, another 20 pounds actually, 19 pounds. So 40 pounds for that one part. And then bila you translate, it becomes 300 ringgit lah. What? Anyway, the moral of the story is I made the payment on that particular website. And the thing is, on the way home, I can actually track it on my phone. Just this morning before the forum started, it's already in transit. It's just the moral of the story is that you can be a really small shop, and if you can market your products well and use search engine optimization. This morning we had the Google Malaysia MD talking about search engine optimization. You can really reach out to customers far and wide. And I think it's not that hard for you to have a proper website, a proper paying system. I'm sure Visa, MasterCard, all the other payment platforms are willing to work with you. Do you feel that this is the opportunity for SMEs to just jump in on the action and reach out to customers on the B2C element? Yes, I understand Datuk Nick was talking about joining the global supply chain. We'll touch on that later. But I think the focus can also be the SMEs right now, reaching out to consumers far and wide, but they have to have that kind of, basics up and ready. Search engine optimization, website friendly, some sort of customer tracking. You log in with your customer ID and username, and then of course payments. If you get all this done, you can even bypass all this Amazon and eBay and all this Alibaba and all the other stuff. Have you? Do you feel that this is the way forward when it comes to reaching out to consumers? Any panelists can take this.
Yeah, let me answer that. Yeah, Ibrahim. Okay, I agree with you. I mean, for the SME, I mean, even the small SME, I mean, they can market their product anywhere, right? I mean, they can leverage on all the platforms, digital platform that are in the market right now. I mean, as you can see, there is a lot like right now, like Shopee, Lazada, and they're very popular in Malaysia, right? But outside Malaysia, there are other platforms that are more popular, right? I mean, like Amazon, eBay, right? I mean, they are not popular here in Malaysia, but they are popular elsewhere. So I mean, they can leverage on that particular platform as well. So I mean, it doesn't matter where we are. Yeah, I mean, we need to know the market. Yeah, we need to know what are the platforms available in that particular country, in that particular region, and we can start to using it, right? But if we just leverage on Google, yeah, I mean, not everyone will directly search on Google, right? Like yourself, I mean, you will go to Lazada, you go to Shopee, you will go to Amazon, eBay before you go to Google, right? So it has to be concurrent, right? Because sometimes if you put your products in all these platform or in all this marketplace, you can also find it on Google, right? Because there's a SEO that link the items, your item from the apps to Google, right? So I mean, it has to be concurrent. Yeah, and then yeah, I mean, we need to know the market. Basically, we need to know the market. We are not sure what are the popular marketplace in Africa, right? So if let's say the small company here in Malaysia can explore that, yeah, I mean they can leverage on market assistant as well. Yeah, I mean they can explore what are the marketplace that popular in China, in India, right? So they can start to promote their product over there, but they need to know their
Arvin, do you
market.
agree? Do you agree with what Helmi said?
Uh, Hi. Okay. Yes and no. In a way, yes, because what he's saying is for item B2C, right? It's much easier where we can promote in all these platforms. But when it comes to a special niche product like what we do, which is very specific to a industry or a standard, because we work with a standard called DNV, which is a Technos Veritas, which is a standard which is built for a particular industry. So when it comes to such standard, it's not as easy as we can promote on a Lazada or a Shopee things because our market is not there. So what we do is we use a lot of platforms such as LinkedIn. LinkedIn works perfectly for us. And besides LinkedIn, Facebook. Facebook is not so much, but LinkedIn mainly on LinkedIn. Search engine optimization is another one, whereby people just need to type offshore containers. We might hit number one or number two, depending on which region we are in. You see, so it all depends on what are you selling, what is your product, and how you sell. Mainly for us, word of mouth sells a lot for us, and also our product. Because whenever we ship our product, all our information is available on the product itself, which has a data plate, which has all our information. So client just need to scan it and then they just contact us via one. Like for example, Nigeria, nobody when we received a reason, we did a project in Nigeria. It was a huge project, but when the project came in, even my staff was saying, "Is it a scam? Is it no?" The perception is such, you see. But we met this client during the previous OTC in Houston when we went with Matrade. So even that time, where we were having this discussion, we were also having this same mindset. But when the inquiry came in, we quoted, and we got the project, and the payment came in. It was like, wow, this actually works. You see, people are really looking into our product. So, like I said, the value proposition. What is your value proposition? How do you market yourself? What makes you different than all your other competitors? So we can identify this and we can nail to it. I think it's easy. But again, it goes based on what you sell end of the day, because your product might be different than others. Consumer goods and business goods are totally different, so the platform will be definitely different. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that business goods as well, because Dr. Nick has rightly segregated or segmented the business. Right now, global supply chain is critical. We've seen how, say, for instance, the silicon chip shortages has resulted in a lot of shortages for electrical equipments and gadgets, anywhere from PS5 to iPhones to Samsung phones and other tablets. We've seen how Malaysia expanded our export, but it's mainly driven by E&E, or electrical or electronic products, and it is up by eight of something billion ringgit. And that is a critical point where we want to have a chat about for this particular panel as well. Where do you see the panelists, whoever wants to take this, where do you see us joining the global supply chain, and not just joining it at the tail end of the value chain, but perhaps at the higher added value chain, where a lot more IP is being used, a lot more value added work is being imputed into the value chain. Do you see some industries that could be further exploited by Malaysian companies when it comes to ensuring that the global supply chain is not just served, but we are serving it at a higher value level? Any panelists who wants to take this?
Okay, Ibrahim, let me take this question. Uh, I mean, I can give an example, because for IX, we are actually part of the global supply chain in our industry, which is the wholesale telecommunication. IX Telecom is a global managed internet provider. So we are not only focusing to deliver internet service in Malaysia, but we are delivering the internet service anywhere around the globe. So currently we have service coverage in more than 200 countries and territories. Yeah, but we do not own infrastructure. So we are the people in the middle, right? That interlink, that interconnect both are different providers. So that's we integrate people, right? I mean, so that they can communicate with each other. So we are in the wholesale industry. Maybe the consumer might not know about us, okay, but the service provider, the global service provider, they are aware about IX. So that's what we are doing. So we are even though we are based in Malaysia, but we try to disrupt. The telecommunication industry itself by providing the global managed internet service anywhere around the globe. So it doesn't matter whether we receive a request from Europe, yeah, from China, from Africa. So we might be able to deliver the service. So because we are we are leveraging on technology. So we have our own platform that we develop, and we that allow other internet providers to connect with each other. I mean, that's how we do. So it's not possible. Yeah, it's not. It's possible. So it's not something that impossible for a Malaysian company. I mean, to do. So I believe there are other products, other services out there that can be benefited. I mean, to the global supply chain, right? So I mean, we need to uh, really know our industry, okay, and identify in which area that we can fit, right? So that's very important. So once we know that, yeah, I believe we can go out and penetrate the global market. Yeah.
Datuk Medan, we know that the barriers are there, and some of the items are clear when it comes to regulation, some certification that is needed for SMEs to resolve in the exporting journey, or at least large corps as well. And sometimes it's rather routine. You have a checklist of the things that you need to cover, but there are some invisible barriers that is going to be faced by companies in their exporting journey that not many are aware of, or they might not be necessarily be prepared to resolve these kind of invisible barriers. What would be some of the ideas that you want to share with us this morning?
Okay, I think thank you for raising the issue of barriers. I think there are basically two categories of barriers. One is the tariff. Basically, tariffs you can look at them as taxes on goods and services and so on. So monetary, and so normally they are very clear. But the problem is come to what you mentioned just now, invisible tariff. An invisible tariff can come in many forms, and basically they are uh, non uh, they're not like taxes. So they can come in many forms. For example, in embargo, censorship, even administrative action, and so on and so forth. Just bureaucratic delays. These are barriers. So if you are in the export business, you must be aware of all the different barriers they can come into encounter. For example, if you know Turkey is the partial or is in the customs union with the European Union. But you know that talking about administrative delays, the transport of Turkish goods to the European Union is subject to extensive administrative overheads. That Turkey estimate they suffer around 3 billion euros a year. Administrative checking transportation export of Turkish products to Europe when they are supposed to be in one custom union. So that is a very simple explanation of the barriers. There are many things. I have experience dealing with embargoes, uh, dealing with sanctions, and dealing with divestment campaigns. So my background is oil and gas. So I think all these barriers they need to overcome, and you need to understand what exactly is happening, and also look for the how to mitigate all this. So these are the kind of problems that can encounter when you go into the international global arena.
My suspicion is this. You know, you've heard of the term known unknowns, unknown unknowns, and at the end of the day, you're going to be faced with a situation where you just have to do it, and then as you encounter all these hurdles, you have to resolve it, and then perhaps the next time round you already know, then it's easier for you to navigate it. Having said that, do you feel that sometimes it's easier to just do first and face all these hurdles head on rather than continuously plan? And sometimes you plan for something that might never happen, so it just takes up resources. What would be some of the ideas when we talk about companies in the exporting journey? Do you feel that there's only a certain amount of plan that you can do? The most important thing is to just do it, head on. Maybe any of the panelists want to take up this point?
Okay, Ibrahim, I'll take up this. Let me talk from my experience on this. When we started this MCO, the first MCO, right? We before that itself, we already started into going into automation, technology-driven products as well. We started using a lot of tools. We started investing a lot of money in a lot of laptops and work from home system. Even though we were not ready for MCO, we were not even ready for it. But then when it happened so quickly. But we were able to get on our feet almost immediately rather than waiting for it. And the first MCO was, I think a lot of companies lost almost 2 weeks. But we were still operating from home because there were a lot of backlogs of projects, which was, we need to update all our clients because majority of our clients are not only in Malaysia. There are a lot of them overseas, but some countries were not having a lockdown. Some countries, yes, it was a very uncharted time. We were not sure how things were going, how we're going to progress on this. And in our manufacturing plant, it's more labor intensive as well, whereby every small product is to be done by a labor. So being in a situation as such, when the operation started working on starting, I think, second week of April for us, after we're getting the meaty letters. So majority of our staff was still had to be working from home, and the operation staff were only allowed maybe about 50%. So that's where our automation came very handy, whereby we have laser machines, we have robotic arms, things that we had 10 fellas doing it. We were running it with one guy, and an engineer who's able to work from home, send the drawing over the email, and he just plugs it in. One of the operators plugs it in, and it works goes on. You see, so these are some of the innovations that we started putting in, and this helped us to reduce a lot of costs involved. Not letting go people, but training the people that we have to do better things, who can generate more value for us rather than being a general worker. You see, but all these items cost money, investment and things like this. So that is where a lot of small companies might not do it, but we consider ourselves a small SME. But we were able to invest on this. We had a fast thinking and saying that, okay, we cannot be depending on labor force forever for the rest of our life, but we have to look at how we can value add to our client so that we can expedite process. And over the years, okay, for the past 6 months, we have a high record of what we call it, price increase, especially on the logistic part. Maybe Dr. Medan can explain that part. And also on the steel, price has gone up almost 40 to 60%. So when clients come back, projects that we quoted about 6 months ago, people want to place an order now. Our clients want to place an order when we said, no, the price has gone up due to the price increase of the steel and all that. We cannot go and say that, oh, we are not going to do this project, but we need to be creative on how to convince our client, and also how to value add to this project and say that, okay, we will do this additional items for you for free of charge, but there are certain costs that we both parties have to agree. We cannot go and say we can't do business anymore because the situation is such, it's very volatile at the moment. Prices are increasing on a daily basis. Things are not as what it seems previously. So these are the things that we need to do. A lot of analysis we need to do. A lot of big data analytical we need to do. Even work from home staff, we are tracking each one of them using geo-trackers. This is something the industry is talking about it now on SOPs, you see. But we are doing this since last year. We have gone into Internet of Things, IoT. All our HR system, all our punch card, time card system, everything is online over the cloud. So we have invested a lot of money, not knowing whether this will work, but thankfully, over the past 1 year, things has been working, and 90% of our staff are still, our majority of our office staff are still working from home, even when the operations are already opened. So these are some of the things that we have to look into leveraging how to move forward.
Ibrahim,
Yeah,
okay, if I can share the experience of the accountancy profession in terms of being innovative in going around barriers, because in professional services, the main barrier is domestic regulation. For example, you talk about audit services. Different country will have different rules on who can be auditors. Some do even impose the auditor must be a citizen of the country. But if you look at the international accounting firm, used to have 12 of them, now 8, now become 4. They are everywhere. So what they have done is they were able to go around the barrier by using a few methods. One is the structuring. Instead of having one big company servicing all the geographical location, they aggregate the little service provider in each country. And what they have in common is perhaps some structure. They have a cooperative in Switzerland so that they cannot be sued. And I think the most important part of this arrangement is the usage of intellectual property. Because that's how you control the quality and the operation, and that's how you transfer profit across jurisdiction as well. And when I was involved in trade negotiation, when we talk about accounting profession, we talk about equity. I did even offer to say that in Malaysia you can take 150% of your equity, because that's not where the money is. The money is in the intellectual property. It's what you pay to get certain services from global, for example. So there are ways and means of going around the regulation, because regulation does not stand still. It keeps on changing as well. So if you will never be able to master everything. So I think to a certain extent you must cover your base, but along the way, you have to continue to innovate so that you are able to go around some of the barriers, because it will continue to be built because of various issues.
Okay, Dato' Ni, I just want to hold you on to that one as well, because to do this, in order for you to be capable of doing this, you need good people to help you out. Dato' Medan was talking about it just now as well. People is everything right now for companies. Arvin is talking about, you know, making sure that people don't end up as general worker forever, do different things with higher value. Sometimes you got to reskill and retrain. But there is one point that Arvin was mentioning, which is that sometimes it's hard for you to do this if you don't have the proper investments, and you might need investors to come in and help out with you on the capital side. Do you feel that the SMEs right now in Malaysia have the opportunity to go out there and try to raise funds, either bank borrowings or capital injection from external investors or any other form of fundraising? Generally speaking, cost of funds are low. Interest rates are low. Central banks around the region, in fact, around the world, are easing their monetary requirements. You know, money is no longer as expensive as it was. Therefore, do you think that now is the time for companies to start to raise funds in order for them to build more capacity? The pandemic will end. I truly believe that. I don't believe that it will end anytime soon, though. But when it does end, wouldn't it be good to have a good muscle part and firepower in terms of capital in order for you to grow your business? What would be some of the ideas that you want to share with us, Dato' Nick, when it comes to capital management and also fundraising?
Well, I think when you talk about exporting, and especially for new companies, you have to understand that the banking system works around risk, and bank are fairly risk adverse to a certain extent. But there's a lot of opportunity in the capital market side. You have, although maybe in Malaysia specs is a bit difficult to be set up, but you have a similar structure that you have now even in the private space. You know, you have the P2P platforms where even small company can now technically raise capital without even being public themselves. So I think if you talk about fundraising, aggregating capacity, it will be more within the capital market space, because that's where you can match the risk of the venture and the risk appetite of the capital provider. I think banking, bankers being bankers, I think they do have to observe a stricter approach in terms of taking risks. But I do see opportunity in the capital market space.
Okay, when you talk about capital market space, we've seen some SMEs actually listing this year. That was interesting. And when I do my interviews with them, the only question I ask is, why list now, right? Why go to why access the capital markets today? And they always come back. It doesn't matter the size of the company. It doesn't matter the age of the company. They always ask me back the same question: why, if not now, then when? When is a good time? So it's always important to understand that if you have a need to grow your company, and you have worked out that you need a certain amount of money to make that growth work, it doesn't matter when you pull the trigger. It's always the right time. Now is always the right time. It's just asking enough for raising that kind of money. Like I said, you can increase on your bank borrowings and therefore hit on your gearing ratio. But at the same time, if it means also to find new investors and try to grow your company that way, I think it's also crucial. But the idea here is that the Malaysian SME world is not normally open to fundraising, for instance. And I don't know whether this is a symptom of the industry or the people inside it, because in other industries it's always vibrant to see more money coming in, particularly in digital businesses. So is this a mindset thing rather than how to do business? I don't know. Maybe my panelists can share their views on this.
Okay, Ibrahim, maybe I can take this up, maybe to add on to what Dato' Nigas mentioned earlier as well, regarding how do you raise your capitals, especially. Majority of the time, banks, yes, people, first thing, they'll think about a bank. But there are other ways of getting money. Where I mean, not really money, hardcore money, but it's more of grants. All right. A lot of we can talk about SME Corp, for example. Okay, they provide a lot of grants under different sectors. They not only manufacturing, even to the I think the small businesses, they have certain grants. Okay, for example, we have purchased quite a number of machineries under this grant. It's always a matching grant. That means you pay 50% and SME Corp or for example, even MIDA, for example, will pay another 50% of it. So it all depends. You need to have a lot of people get taken aback whenever they see the requirement of this paperwork. They will be taken aback. It's like, how are we going to get this grant? There's so many documents. You need to prepare a proper business plan. A lot of people do not have such business plans. They don't know what they're going to write. They do not have the data to put in to write this business plan. All right, if I buy this machine, how much am I going to save in terms of dollars and cents, and also in terms of productivity? How much time I'm saving? How much? What is my turnaround time? Things like this. All this data puts people back. So whenever we have, based on my discussion with the industry, being an active member of Federation of Malaysian Manufacturer, a lot of people do not know this, whereby they feel that this puts them off. But they do not know, when you walk into SME Corp, there are people who are willing to guide you, help you on how to get this done. The money is there. It's just making sure that you are spending it wisely. That is the role of SME Corp. That means to make sure that you're spending it wisely, not buying something which doesn't make any sense to you.
Yeah.
So when they see the reason for this, the true intention for this, and how it can help the business to be more productive, they will definitely come in with the right money. I mean, the grant, you see, to help us out. So this a lot of people do not know this. So it's best, like I said, talk to get yourself registered in all this association or the government agencies like MIDA, SME Corp, or even Matrade for yourself, to get better understanding, because there are a lot of newsletters going out on a daily basis on how to get this done, what is available in this market, and things like that. A small example, when I was applying for one grant, we were there at SME Corp, and this small time, she's running a business from home, a small workshop at the back of her house, and she's preparing this fried onion, bawang goreng, they call it, right? Packed, ready to cook, sort of thing. But she was doing it manually the previous time, where she needs to cut. She has to bring in 30, 40 workers, cut and clean it up and fry it and all. But she had this idea. She went to SME Corp. SME Corp put it up to the market and say, who can invent something, for this person. It's a local developed product. End of the day, so they came out with a small machine which can do all this, cut everything, dice it up. Yes, now she reduces to 10 workers maybe, or 5 workers, just to pack it, fry it, and things like that. So the grant was given, and she is able to produce this on a larger scale and even go into export. Not only local market. Her market is no longer local now. No, she can go into Singapore, Thailand, other markets, because she has the capability and the capacity to do so. So this is another way of doing things, right? Yes, bank is always conventional.
Okay, so that's the point that I want to drive in as well. Sometimes partnerships, mentorships, and perhaps guidance is critical. Arvin was sharing a story from an entrepreneur with the SME Corp, but there's also other agencies out there, Chambers of Commerce, Matrade, all ready to help SMEs. But I have had an experience where one particular business proprietor, he wasn't entirely happy with the kind of associations and government agencies that he was dealing with. I'm not too sure why he had such a grievance, but one of the items that he mentioned to me was that it didn't help answer that critical thing that he wants, which is a particular business growth strategy. So I told him, perhaps what you need is is an internal manager to help you out on that one, a business strategist, a business planner, a corporate planner, not that kind of you can't replace a corporate planner role inside your company by going to Matrade or SME Corp. So there seems to be some mismatch into some expectations into what SMEs get from partnering Matrade and SME Corp and all the other government agencies out there, particularly when they are established to do a particular purpose. Do you feel that the role for the managers, particularly high value managers, either from accountants or consultants or business planners or brand strategists, those kind of roles that not many businesses think about before, now is the time for them to upskill their company by hiring these talents? Do you feel that that is a critical point in growing their business? So exporting is just a byproduct of this. It's actually trying to improve their internal workings first. Maybe Helmi, you can take up on this.
Okay. I mean, just now when you're talking about I mean the company. I mean they complain about the agency. Right? They go to the agency and they expect the agency will help them to solve the problem. Right? And that's not how it works. Right? Even for us, we've been leveraging on market assistant for the past 10 years. Right? I mean, if we ask Martrade to help us to promote our telecommunication services, our internet service worldwide, I don't think Martrade is able to do that, right? Because I mean, Martrade, I mean, their focus is different. I mean, they are not just focused on our industry, right? They are focusing on multiple industries. Right? I mean, they are bringing a Malaysian export to the world, right? So we need to be very specific, right, on what we need. So if I mean for us, based on our experience, uh, we will do our own research. We will validate, right, our own market research by engaging the market expertise, right? So we don't just simply go to them and ask them to help. So we need to know what type of assistance that you need from them, and then they will be able to help. Yeah, we're talking about grants, like Arvin just already mentioned about grants, right? I mean, we've been enjoying Matrix grant as well, right? I mean, they have all these like market development grant, and then they have a very good program like mid-tier development program, right? MTCDP. So it's a very good program for a company like us. When we joined Matrix program, we were still very young at that time, right? And then we are moving from a small company to SME, and now we are a mid-tier company because we know what we want. Okay, and then we are getting the metric assistant based on the market research that we did, right? So we ask them a specific assistant. When talking about grant, like right now, even though we cannot go out, we cannot travel out of Malaysia, because previously we always join this exhibition and conference outside Malaysia. I mean, that's how we market our services. So we need to travel a lot and meet our potential customers during the exhibition and conference. But we won't be able to do that now during the pandemic. So, but the good thing is that during the pandemic, they have this virtual exhibition, they have this virtual conference, and we still can leverage on Matrix grant. So they still open up their grant for a company like us. So you can use Matrix grant like this market development grant MDG. You still can use that grant to participate in the virtual exhibition, virtual conference, right? So on our side we can save a lot lah, right? I mean it's not cheap to join the international conference, but with the assistance that Matrix give, yeah, we are able to I mean to save that amount of money lah for the market development, right? So there are
Okay.
a way to leverage on that. Yeah.
Okay. One item that I want to also explore before we adjourn this morning's panel session is ESG. I think a lot of Malaysian companies take it for granted, I also think that a lot of Malaysian companies, when it comes to ESG, they always think about it just in the environmental aspect, not necessarily governance and also social aspect. Do you feel that for exporting to some developed markets, and I do consider Singapore to be as developed as it gets, yeah, in this part of the world, do you feel that if a company thinks a lot about their ESG practices, this would actually help them improve their market standing in some of the exporting destinations that they intend to go to, particularly if that destination is a developed market? Maybe Dato' Medan, you want to talk a little bit more about ESG?
No, I think that's a valid point you raised. I think, I mean, if you go into the advanced market, ESG is a very important element for them to consider. They will try to find out ways your drug produced, how it was produced, whether it's a sustainable manner, and even now they're linked to, for instance, uh, human rights issues. So all this, and now the latest trend is to link it to climate issues, the effect of your industry on climate and so on, whether it's detrimental to the climate. So all these are actually barriers as well for big companies, let alone small companies, to penetrate very lucrative markets like the US and so on. So I think we must understand, must know that these things are there, and we must prepare for it and mitigate it so that you can get a smooth entry into the premium market. So things and philosophies change over time, and I think that what is in vogue now is the ESG and so on and so forth. And
Uh,
companies who are serious about these things have to do their homework and get advice.
Arvind, do you focus more on ESG, considering that you have a lot on your plate as well?
Right. Yes, we have to. We have no choice because this is the requirement when you go into exporting, being an exporter in a way, because a majority of a lot of our companies that we export to are Fortune 500 companies in the oil and gas industry, where they have stated clearly on a lot of requirement on ESG. All right. Environmental, for example, how do you do this? Social economy, governance, whether we use child labor, whether we are involved in such, a lot of, I think for the past 6 months, we have been seeing a lot of such companies are getting banned in certain countries for violating certain rules and regulations. That is why, where in terms of my company, what we have done is we have gone into a lot of certification, additional certification. I know ISO is a very common certification that we go into. So 9001 is for document management system. Even for a small SME, even we have to invest in such. We do not need to think that we do not need this, all right? Because if you are going into export, the first thing any company is going to ask whether you have this certification. So that is the basic. Then you go into environmental. Then you go into health and safety. On top of that, we are also under a Malaysia Malaysian brand certification. Under the Malaysian brand audit, if you look at it, they will go into a lot of detailed, nitty-gritty questions on social responsibility. What are we doing for the back to the society? What are we doing, to make sure that we do not fall into such governance issues? So when we go for such audits and all that, we put ourselves in a check and balance sort of situation to see that, okay, we have this, we have such policies, we come out with policies as well. So when we go for tenders, and when we go for tenders, all this makes our life easier because we already have everything in place. So we just need to submit all our documents and all our audit reports in the past that we have done with all these agencies or whatsoever, and makes our life so much easier. Instead of reinventing, we already have it in place. So I believe a lot of companies are already into this, and we should make use of all these available resources. There are a lot of tax deductions been given for such, certification as well by the government itself. So why not use it? I know it's difficult to start, but you have to start somewhere. So leverage it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Ibrahim,
always
just
difficult, particularly.
yeah,
Dato' Nick, go
just
ahead.
one point about one point about ESG, be also mindful about the NGOs in the sector that you are operating, because sometimes you're looking at the government regulation and all those things. But from my experience, NGOs also can cause you problem, because if they feel that you are not in compliance with certain expectation, then they can create issues to you. And you have seen some of the Malaysian exporters are barred from entering certain market because the NGO did their bit in instigating certain actions against our exporters. So apart from government regulation, you have to be mindful of the NGO, and you have to deal with them to make sure that your business is not interrupted.
That's a very valid point. A few industries I can think of right now: palm oil in Europe, rubber gloves in the US. You're right. Yeah, it's important for the companies or exporting companies to think about the NGOs. But I don't know. That's the thing, right? You're adding more and more job scope to the exporting company. You got to think about the operations. You got to think about the business planning. You got to think about the ESG rules. You got to think about stakeholder engagement, government relations. Suddenly becomes a real mammoth task to navigate all this. And we don't have much time. In fact, we only have about 5 minutes left. How should we encapsulate all these massive things that we have just discussed over the past an hour plus and help guide SMEs through their exporting journey, particularly when we want to reignite our exporting business? Let's go round the table in our closing statements. Maybe we start with Dato' Medan. What would be some of the ideas that you want to share with us in these closing remarks of yours?
Okay, I think the barriers, as I said, is to be aware of it. But the moment you try to go outside to export, the problems that you normally have in a domestic market would be magnified manifold. So I think that's something that people to take note. And how do you prepare for that, and so on and so forth? I mean, we talked about some of the issues just now. There's no sanction in the country, but if you once you go out, all your performance and in terms of your EST and so on will be vetted. So are you ready, or how are you getting ready to answer that, and so on and so forth? So that is those are the things that learning points that people can take away. And it's a very complex environment. If you think about oil and gas, geopolitics come in, and I mean there's a massive different form of game going on. So it's the business world is there out there is very complex and complicated. But we must be aware and to know how do we mitigate and take precautions. And that's all I think my advice.
All right, Helmi.
Okay. I mean, for my advice, I mean, for the company to take advantage on, I mean, how we can reignite our export at the moment, because there's a lot of uncertainty. So the technology is the best option that I can think of, but you need to choose wisely which technology that you want to use. Right? I mean, because technology can be uh, very expensive and can be cheap as well. So choose it wisely. Yeah, I mean, for the small company, maybe perhaps you can start with the marketplace, right? The public marketplace, right? Maybe it's much more cheaper. But for the big companies, maybe you can start to invest on IR 4.0, on the automation, yeah, big data analytics, yeah, and so forth, right? So technology is the key right now.
All right, Arvin, closing statements.
Okay, I know we have spoken about a lot of things today, but the thing is, basically, I will go back to what you want to achieve at the end of the day. All right, you have a product you want to sell locally or internationally, but what makes your product different? That is your value proposition. Okay, what makes you different? What makes your company different? What makes your brand different? So if a organization or a business owner can identify this, um, he's able to look at his product differently, and he's able to market his product differently, and he's able to get into markets that he would have never thought of, right? For example, for me, Nigeria, would have never thought of Nigeria, but we are there now, big. So you need to go back to your drawing board, look at it and see what makes you different than the others. All right. If you do not identify this, then you are back to square one. You are again at the tail end, chasing the same, crumbs or braids or cakes, whatever, piece of it. So we don't want to be there. We want to be, one of the player where people recognize you.
Dato' Nick.
Okay, perhaps 3 points. First is be realistic in terms of what you want to achieve. Number two is play to your strength. Don't extend yourself too far that you cannot continue and support yourself. And number three, collaborate as much as possible, because through collaboration, some of these issues and challenges can be overcome in a more effective manner.
Short and sweet, fantastic. We just want to end with this note, right? That story of me buying that vacuum is a classic tale of one customer across the world ready to buy your product, not knowing that your product is there to be bought in the first place. I've already lost hope, because it's a very unique part of the vacuum cleaner. But if I can find your product somewhere across the globe, I'm sure other customers can find your products as well across the globe as well. Hilmi touched on the issue of technology that's critical. Dato' Medan talked about barriers, both hidden and not hidden. That's true. ESG is also a key element, and Arvin shared a lot of items when it comes to distinguishing yourself, brand yourself, try to rethink or reskill your people. And Dato' Ni was talking about more on how we can actually leverage on all these strengths and be critical and clear on what we need to be and find our place in the exporting world. I think there are a lot of things that were discussed this morning that could be thought-provoking. I hope you can try to see where the resources are and try to find greater collaboration with that. Matrade is a good place to start. All the other government agencies are there as well, chambers of commerce as well. Try to partner up with all your partners all there. They are ready for assisting you, because at the end of the day, it's a pandemic world and we have to do things differently. And this is one of the ways of us doing things differently. If we go back to the same old way of doing things, I don't think we can survive in these very tough conditions. So that's it. We shall adjourn the plenary session for this morning. I would like to thank Dato' Nick Ashuddin, Nick Yusof, the Director of Bank Islam Berhad. I would also like to thank Dato' Medan Abdullah, the Group CEO of Bintulu Port Holdings. Maybe Dato' Medan, you can get in touch with Arvin. He was a bit upset about your price tariff hike. Also, Arvin, thanks very much, the MD of VG Offshore Containers International. And of course, Nur Hilmi, the CEO of IX Telecom. There's a good panel that's coming up at 11 o'clock, which is called Formulating Business Agility. And there's a lot of conversations that needs to be had when it comes to building agile businesses. That's coming up about 5 to 10 minutes after this. That's it from us for this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.